Every time I see a press release for a new smart city initiative, I get this very specific mental image.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
It's always this futuristic, almost solar punk utopia. You've got these AI traffic lights that magically clear the roads for ambulances.
Right.
And street lights that dim to save energy, and, trash cans that politely text the sanitation department when they're full.
The Jetsons lifestyle.
Exactly. The Jetsons lifestyle we were all promised. It's a very seductive pitch.
It really is a seductive pitch. And honestly, who wouldn't want that? I mean, it's clean, it's efficient, it's completely data-driven.
Yeah.
And it sells incredibly well to city councils who want to look like they're living in 2050.
While the rest of us are, just stuck in traffic in 2024.
Exactly. It's the ultimate shiny object for local governments.
It is. But we've got a stack of research here today for this deep dive, and it paints a picture that is significantly less shiny.
Considerably less.
Yeah. We're looking at a conversation featuring Dr. Mazlan Abbas from Fevriat Sembang Santai. And when you look at his insights, the reality is less utopia and more
of an administrative hostage situation.
Yes. That is a surprisingly accurate description. So for you listening today, our mission for this deep dive is to look at the gap between the glossy brochure and the gritty reality.
Because when you strip away the marketing buzzwords, the AI-driven ecosystems and seamless integration.
All that jargon.
Right. You are often left with a city that has spent millions on sensors that completely refuse to talk to each other.
And they're locked into contracts they can't escape.
With data they don't even truly own.
So we're really reading the fine print today. And Dr. Mazlan's core argument is that cities are ending up stuck instead of smart.
Which is a great way to put it.
They're buying gadgets instead of actually building governance. So let's just start with the first trap, which seems to begin literally the moment the ribbon is cut.
Or honestly, even before that. Dr. Mazlan refers to this as launch day syndrome.
Launch day syndrome.
Yeah. And if you work in enterprise tech, you know this exact vibe. Sure. The focus is entirely on the installation day.
Right. The mayor is there, the tech vendor CEO flew in, they've got the giant oversized scissors.
It's a fantastic photo op. They get to say, look, we just installed 500 smart flood sensors.
It's the classic mission accomplished banner.
Right before the wars even started.
Exactly. The ceremony lasts 30 minutes. The headlines run for a day.
But that infrastructure, that has to work for 10 years. And Dr. Mazlan points out that almost zero thought is given to what happens after the news cameras leave.
The maintenance reality.
Yes. The maintenance reality kicks in, and it is usually pretty ugly.
I feel like this is the equivalent of buying a Ferrari just because it looks really cool in your driveway. But you haven't budgeted for the tires or the oil changes or the fact that you literally don't know how to drive a stick shift.
I'd say it's actually worse than that. It's
Yeah.
like buying the Ferrari, but the hood is permanently welded shut.
Oh, wow.
And only the original dealership is legally allowed to change the oil, and they decide to charge you $10,000 a visit.
Okay, that is a terrifying analogy. We are getting into the vendor lock-in nightmare pretty early here, but let's stick to the initial setup for a second.
Sure.
When these councils are buying all this expensive hardware, aren't they asking standard procurement questions? Like, how much does this cost to maintain over a decade?
They do ask questions, but they're usually the wrong ones.
What do you mean?
Well, they ask about volume and visibility. Things like, how many sensors can we get for $5 million?
Right.
Or how quickly can we get this dashboard live on the city website? They want these quick visible wins to show their constituents.
So they're optimizing for the PR win.
Exactly. They aren't asking the structural long-term questions. Things like, who actually owns the data schema?
Yeah.
Is this hardware interoperable with open standards? Or, my personal favorite, what is the bankruptcy contingency if your startup completely disappears in 6 months?
Which, to be fair, those are the really boring questions.
They are very boring.
I mean, nobody gets reelected on a platform of robust API documentation.
No, they don't. But those boring questions are exactly what determines whether a city becomes a genuine success story or just a massive money pit.
Because when the hype fades, what are you left with?
You're left with cybersecurity patches, hardware failures, and massive data disputes. And if you didn't legally define those terms on day one, the city has absolutely no leverage.
Let's dig into that money pit aspect, because this concept of vendor lock-in from the source material is wild. It sounds almost like a digital version of a mob protection racket.
It really is a business model disguised as a municipal partnership. Let's walk through the specific scenario Dr. Maslon lays out.
Okay, set the scene.
Say a city installs 5,000 smart environmental sensors on their streetlights. These measure air quality, noise levels, maybe humidity.
Standard smart city stuff.
Right. And the city signs a 5-year contract with Vendor X.
Vendor X provides the sensors. They provide the software dashboard to view the data.
Exactly. The dashboard looks super slick. The mayor loves it. But then 5 years pass.
And the contract is up for renewal.
Right. And suddenly the city realizes Vendor X is now charging double the original price for maintenance. Or maybe the technology has just drifted and there's a much better, cheaper competitor out there.
Let's call them Vendor Y.
Yes, Vendor Y. And the city decides they want to switch to Vendor Y.
So they thank Vendor X for their service, shake hands, and switch. That's just how a free market works.
In a healthy, functional market, yes.
Yeah.
But here's the trap. The city goes to Vendor X and says, okay, we're leaving. Please hand over our historic environmental data.
And Vendor X says no.
They say, sure, here it is. But they hand it over in a proprietary encrypted binary format.
Oh, wow.
A format that literally only Vendor X's software can read.
So they basically bricked the data.
Effectively, yes. But it gets worse. Even if you manage to abstract the raw data, those 5,000 physical sensors up on the telephone poles are hard-coded.
Hard-coded to do what?
To communicate exclusively with Vendor X's servers. The firmware is completely locked down.
So if you want to switch to Vendor Y's software, you can't just push an update and point the sensors to a new IP address?
Nope. You have to send crews out in bucket trucks to physically replace all 5,000 devices.
Which would cost millions of dollars in labor alone.
Exactly. So the switching cost is vastly higher than just swallowing your pride and paying the extortionate renewal fee to Vendor X.
Man, that is brutal. Dr. Maslon calls this digital dependency, right?
Yes, digital dependency. You theoretically have the legal right to leave the contract, but economically, you are totally trapped. You're a hostage. And this isn't an accident. This is a deliberate strategy by the vendor.
It's the printer ink model applied to municipal infrastructure. They give you the sensors cheap up front, but they own your ecosystem forever.
And this is exactly where the smart city label becomes highly ironic. Because if a city council signs a contract like that, they aren't being smart. They are stuck.
Yeah, they've essentially outsourced their entire digital brain to a private for-profit company.
A company that has a fiduciary duty to its own shareholders, not to the city's residents.
But surely city legal teams look at these contracts before they sign them. How do they miss the part that says we own your infrastructure forever?
Because it's buried deep in technical jargon. Unless the city has a very specific smart city project management office, a PMO with deep technical expertise, the legal team just sees a service level agreement.
And it looks like standard boilerplate to them.
Right. A lawyer knows how to check for liability clauses. They don't usually know to look for API restrictions or data schema ownership clauses.
Which brings us to another massive issue, the smart silo problem. Because we aren't just talking about one vendor here, right? A city usually hires a dozen different vendors for different things.
Correct. And this is where that lack of a central PMO, a central brain, becomes an absolute disaster.
Yeah, walk me through that.
Okay, so you have the Department of Transportation buying a smart traffic management system from one vendor.
Makes sense.
Then the Department of Sanitation buys a smart waste management system from a totally different vendor. Okay. And the Environmental Agency buys flood sensors from a third vendor.
And I'm guessing none of these systems talk to each other?
Zero communication. They are completely disparate, siloed systems.
Now, playing devil's advocate for you listening, you might think, so what? Why does the city garbage truck need to talk to the traffic light?
It sounds silly until you think about the logistics.
Right, because I can actually see why that would be useful. If a massive trash truck is blocking a narrow downtown lane for 10 minutes, the traffic light system should probably know that so it can route cars around the blockage.
Exactly. Or take the flood example Dr. Maslon highlights, which is even more critical.
Yeah, the flood example really stood out to me.
Say those environmental sensors detect rapidly rising water in a highway underpass. In a genuinely smart city, that detection system immediately triggers the traffic management system.
Automatically turning the traffic lights red, leading into that tunnel?
Yes, effectively closing the road and rerouting traffic before anyone actually drives into the water and gets stuck.
But in a smart silo city?
In a siloed city, the flood dashboard is flashing a red warning light on a monitor in the environmental office.
While the traffic dashboard is showing green lights in a totally different office down the hall.
Because the systems aren't integrated via an open API layer. So the city bus drives right into the flooded tunnel.
Oh. So you end up with, as the source material puts it, wet sensors and stuck cars.
It is the perfect summary of failed governance. The city spent millions on expensive gadgets, but because they didn't mandate interoperability standards, they didn't actually gain any intelligence.
They just got incredibly expensive push notifications that nobody acted on in time.
Exactly.
And this feels like the whole era of AI is just going to make this exponentially worse, or at least expose the flaws more.
Oh, absolutely. AI is the great multiplier here. Every mayor right now wants AI-driven governance on their resume.
Of course.
But AI needs data. It needs clean, structured, and accessible data.
Which you don't have if everything is siloed.
Right. If your traffic data is locked in vendor A's proprietary format, and your energy grid data is sitting on vendor B's server with no API access, your AI is essentially blind. You cannot optimize a system that the AI cannot see.
That makes total sense. And then there is the security nightmare aspect of this. If you have 10 different vendors with 10 completely different security standards.
You don't have a secure network. You just have 10 different backdoors for hackers to choose from.
Yeah.
And Dr. Maslin raises a deeply critical point here about data sovereignty and national security. We aren't just counting cars passing an intersection anymore.
We're talking about highly sensitive data.
Highly sensitive. Smart cities collect massive amounts of data on citizen movement patterns, facial recognition from public CCTV, real-time energy usage.
That is a gold mine for bad actors.
It is. If that data is breached, it's not just an embarrassing PR crisis for the mayor. It is a legitimate national security risk.
Because it reveals the exact vulnerabilities of the city's infrastructure.
Exactly. And if you don't even know exactly where that data is physically stored, is it on a local municipal server? Is it sitting in a commercial cloud server in a completely different country?
Right, who has jurisdiction over it?
Exactly. If you don't know that, you are fundamentally failing in your duty to protect your citizens.
So it stops being just an IT department problem and starts being a geopolitical issue.
Precisely. If you build the physical system first and then try to bolt on cybersecurity as an afterthought, you have already lost the game. Security has to be integrated by design from day one.
But again, if the city council is just looking at the shiny dashboard during the vendor sales pitch, they probably aren't asking tough questions about end-to-end encryption protocols.
They rarely do.
So if we play this all out, Dr. Maslin sketches out this really fascinating future forecast. He gives us a tale of two cities about 5 years down the line. Let's look into the crystal ball here.
Let's do it. Let's start with the cautionary tale. City B, the stuck city.
Walk me through a random Tuesday morning in City B.
A Tuesday morning in City B is highly frustrating for everyone. The mayor is currently dealing with a massive budget crisis.
Because of the vendor lock-in.
Yes,
Yep.
because they have to renew 3 different proprietary software contracts at absolute premium rates, and they have no alternative.
Rough start to the day.
Meanwhile, the downtown traffic system is glitching, but the vendor is taking their time responding to the support ticket because they have a total monopoly and honestly don't care.
They already got paid.
Right. And the citizens are annoyed because the fancy new smart parking app they were told to download doesn't actually work with the new electric vehicle chargers the city just installed.
Because they were bought by 2 different departments who didn't talk to each other.
Exactly. So City B is essentially a patchwork of expensive, disconnected junk.
It's a museum of expiring contracts.
That's exactly what it is. And crucially, because of this, local innovation has completely stalled.
How so?
Well, local tech startups can't build any cool, helpful apps for the city because all the municipal data is legally locked down by these foreign vendors. So the local tech sector in City B just slowly dies out. Investors look at the infrastructure mess and decide to set up shop somewhere else.
Which brings us to the alternative. City A, the wise city.
Yes. City A looks very different, and ironically, not because it has more visible gadgets on the street. It's actually because the technology is mostly invisible.
It just works.
It just works. Because City A started with a strict governance framework. They legally mandated open standards from the very beginning.
So when their contract for the smart air quality sensors ended,
They easily swapped out the original vendor for a newer, better one, but they kept all their historical data and kept the central dashboard running seamlessly.
because the city owned the architecture, not the vendor.
Exactly. And because the data is open and accessible via APIs, the local university is actively using it to run advanced traffic simulations. A local startup just built a vastly superior waste management app that plugs directly into the city's grid.
So City A doesn't just save money, it becomes an economic magnet.
That is the key takeaway. Smart cities are fundamentally an economic strategy, not just an IT project.
Right.
City A attracts young tech talent, it attracts venture capital, and it can easily adapt to new technology like advanced AI because its digital foundation is flexible.
While City B is still just paying off technical debt from 2024.
Exactly.
That is a really stark contrast, and it completely drives home the point that building a smart city isn't really about buying the most advanced robot. It is about writing the smartest contract.
100%.
So if I'm a policymaker listening to this deep dive right now, or even just a citizen who really doesn't want to see my tax dollars set on fire, what is the actual fix here? Dr. Maslan outlines a very specific path to go from being smart to being wise.
He does.
What's the checklist?
It starts with one very simple, non-negotiable mantra: governance first. You do not buy a single physical sensor until you have established the rules of engagement.
Okay, so what is rule number 1 on that list?
Mandate open APIs and open data standards, period. If a tech vendor sits down and says, well, our system works best if you only use our proprietary products,
You stand up and politely leave the room.
you leave the room. The rule has to be, we only play well with others. Interoperability is completely non-negotiable.
Okay, open standards. What's next?
Second, you must create a dedicated smart city PMO, a project management office.
Right, we touched on this earlier. You need a central conductor for the orchestra.
Yes. You simply cannot have the parking department and the sanitation department making massive, siloed technology decisions in a vacuum.
Someone has to be able to see the whole board.
Exactly. And third, and honestly, this is the one that really stuck with me the most from the research, you have to plan your exit strategy before you even sign the initial contract.
The prenuptial agreement approach to municipal tech.
That's exactly what it is. You have to assume the vendor relationship will eventually end. So you ask, when we break up in 5 years, who legally gets the data?
In what exact file format?
Yes. Who owns the physical hardware on the light poles? If all of that isn't explicitly defined in writing up front, you are willingly walking into a trap.
And there was also a crucial point in there about building capability too, right? Like not just outsourcing everything to consultants.
The exact quote is, don't outsource your digital brain.
That's such a good line.
It's vital. You can hire external consultants to help, sure, but the city government needs its own internal experts who deeply understand the digital architecture.
Because if you don't understand the tech you're buying, you can't actually govern it.
Right. You aren't governing anything, you're just blindly signing checks.
Which brings us to a really fascinating philosophical shift that was mentioned in the source material, this concept of amana.
Yes, Amana. This is where the conversation really elevates from just being about technical specifications to being about profound ethical responsibility.
Break that down for us.
Amana translates roughly to trust or stewardship or moral responsibility. Dr. Maslan heavily emphasizes that managing a smart city isn't just an administrative chore. It is a fundamental moral trust.
How so? In what way?
Because as a city government, you are dealing with the public's financial resources, but more importantly, the public's deeply personal data.
Right.
When you install systems that collect information on exactly where people walk, where they drive, how much energy they use in their homes, you are holding that intimate information in trust.
You're a steward of their digital lives.
Exactly. And if you allow that citizen data to be economically exploited by a private vendor or breached by a foreign hacker simply because you were lazy with your cybersecurity audits, you haven't just made an IT error. You have violated that amana. You have broken the public trust.
That is an incredibly powerful framing. It completely stops being just a conversation about operational efficiency, and it starts being a conversation about integrity.
It does.
Yeah.
A truly wise city understands that deploying powerful technology without strict accountability is just creating a massive liability.
Yeah. The ultimate goal isn't to brag about having the most sensors per capita. The goal is to create long-term sustainable value that genuinely respects and protects the citizens. That is the fundamental difference between just being a smart city and actually being a wise city.
It's so interesting because usually when we talk about tech in these deep dives, the prevailing mindset is all about disruption. Move fast and break things.
Right, the Silicon Valley mantra.
But here, the expert advice for cities is almost the exact opposite. It's slow down, read the fine print, build the boring foundational layers first.
Because moving fast and breaking things works totally fine if you're just building a new social media app. It does not work for critical urban infrastructure.
The stakes are just too high.
Way too high. If you break the city's traffic grid, emergency services can't get through and people die. If you break the municipal budget on terrible vendor contracts, the entire city economically stagnates for a decade.
So just to recap the journey we've been on for you listening today, we started with the very real allure of the blinking lights and the utopian promises, the shiny objects.
The shiny objects. And we realized that without asking the right boring structural questions, those shiny lights are really just an elaborate trap set by vendors.
We saw exactly how proprietary closed systems intentionally create digital dependency. We saw how organizational silos lead to the absurdity of wet sensors in stuck cars.
And we learned that the real battle for the future of our cities isn't actually fought in some high-tech server room. It's fought in the municipal procurement office.
It really is. The solution is boring but vital. Strict governance, completely open data standards, and treating the citizens' data with the profound respect, the amana, that it inherently deserves.
So whether you are a city councilor making these decisions, a tech provider building the systems, or just an everyday citizen, the core lesson here is exactly the same.
Technology is just a tool. It is not a magic wand, and it requires immense discipline to actually use it well.
Before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a final thought to carry with you the next time you take a walk downtown in your own neighborhood.
Right, going back to that City A versus City B scenario.
Exactly. I want you to look around your own city's infrastructure. When you see a brand new digital kiosk on the sidewalk or a shiny new smart camera mounted on a traffic light, ask yourself a really hard question.
Is this individual gadget actually a small piece of a thoughtfully connected, future-proof system?
Or is it really just another expiring proprietary contract that is quietly waiting to fail?
A little bit of healthy skepticism is exactly what we need to keep our local governments on their toes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive today.
It's been great. Stay curious and stay wise.